Alright, howdy gents, welcome back to more Broken Arrow. As I promised in the video I posted just a couple of days ago, today we're going to be showcasing some of the actual raw gameplay that they showed at a recent developer stream. Now if you want to check that previous video, I will link it in the description. Highly suggest you do, because this game obviously has a little bit more to offer than just this gameplay that I'm about to show you, and it really I think comes down to this deck creation and unit customization part that's going to set this game apart from Wargamer Dragon, Steel Division, or even World in Conflict. So I already kind of mentioned it. In case you missed it before we get into the gameplay, it is a game very similar to Wargame, Steel Div, and World in Conflict, where you build your specialized deck of units to take on your enemies. Due to the large amount of customizability, these decks are going to vary a lot from each other, thus making a lot of these games probably feel a little different every time you play it. Now keep in mind, this is an early alpha build, so a lot of things are still a work in progress, like a lot of the icons you see when they select units. The developers also mentioned they are working on a line of sight tool, much like you can see in Steel Division 2, but it has not been 100% implemented here yet. And last but not least, a playable beta for the public would happen around Q2 of 2022, which means anywhere hopefully between April 1st and June 30th, which is actually pretty close and is honestly very exciting. So the devs stated this particular scenario, of which they made a video, was made in their level editor, which I talk about very briefly in my other video. With that all being said, let's get into the battle. The battle begins with multiple LAV-25s carrying Force Recon infantry teams rushing down a road, while AH-64 Apache attack helicopters provide top cover, spot, and also engage Russian Motostrelki infantry. Striker Mobile Gun System, or Striker MGS vehicles, are also seen right behind these LAVs, most likely to provide some long-range ground-based AT support opposed to the Apaches. Friendly rocket artillery has been given the order to target the ridgeline to the left of the friendly forces, makes for some nice fireworks on pretty much no enemy units, as the Apaches already killed all of them as the ground units advance towards the first capture zone or capture circle, which also happens to be engaged by some artillery. Potentially the observation devices on the Apaches spot some units in the far tree line, with one of the LAV-25s getting destroyed by these units. It's kind of hard to discern here with the quality. I personally would love to see infantry get somewhat damaged, at least if their transport is destroyed. It's really on the player to make sure their embarked infantry does not get right in the middle of a combat zone. The Striker MGSs are now pushing up while firing on the move. According to my previous video, I did quickly check back. There is a stabilizer percentage, so though firing on the move is possible for some or a lot of units, they will have to do that with reduced accuracy, though the accuracy on these MGSs seems pretty effective so far. One of the Apaches goes down from what appears to be either a BTR or a BMP's main gun, then the MGS strikers knock out the rest of these vehicles. What I assume is the scanner on the Apache picks up some more Motostrelki in the forests and engage it with the help of the ground forces nearby. Now one of their dev blogs that I went over in a previous video did mention how specifically the Apache can be upgraded with a bunch of different systems, so perhaps this is an upgraded Apache being able to spot units in the forest with relative ease. Here we see a battle line of LAVs with infantry inside make a push towards another capture zone. This time we also have Black Hawks loaded with Navy SEALs flying over, presumably to add some shock and awe to this attack. Though enemy units are not marked, we can see fire coming out some of the apartment buildings and destroying multiple LAV-25s. Force Recon units are now seen storming the buildings backed up by the earlier mentioned SEALs. I personally hope we see some sort of mechanic allowing infantry in buildings to fight it out, with units that are trained higher or more equipped for CQB winning out if they have an equal health pool to begin with. Some sort of breaching mechanic would be really cool, or a fast roping mechanic on top of a building like Command and Conquer style. There's got to be something there other than just infantry unit pushes inside building and that's it. Obviously we haven't really seen what happens there. It's kind of low quality and it's probably early on in the development, but I really would love to see some interesting infantry on infantry fighting in buildings. The MGS strikers are now pushing into a Russian tank unit off to the flank, starting to take some heavy losses, while more Force Recon aboard LAVs is trying to make their way into the city that was just hit by the artillery. And this shot right here really reminds me of World in Conflict. It's a quick shot from very far away where we can see some HIMARS units launching another artillery strike. Here we follow a battle line of M1A1 Abrams into the fray. Looks like they're counterattacking that Russian tank unit that just destroyed the Striker MGSs. With the next shot showing the terrain up close. However, I got a confirmation from a developer on Discord this is absolutely not final. In the next shot, we see the dreaded heli spam. Russian helicopters seem to be able to fly through the American air defenses here relatively unharmed, and then they knock out every single unit on screen while suffering only a couple of casualties themselves. I'm not really sure what's going on here. Maybe these are some top tier, top level, top equipped Russian helicopters versus some very low level, very cheap US air defense units, but they just got wiped out. We see a large US force consisting of quite a few different units advancing onto a village, with Russian forces popping up, though disabling a few American units here and there, but mostly getting annihilated and allowing the Americans to occupy the village. American armor pushes towards Russian armor, supported by what appears to be self-propelled mortar units. It then cuts to the Russian side of things, where we see some Msta SPG trying to counter the American attack. I do have to say the sound here is already pretty good for an alpha access video. With the American tanks now advancing, we can see some destroyed Abrams tanks off to the side. Personally, I'd like to see some variation in these wrecks, but then again, I don't think Wargame really has any variation other than just a blacked out or burnt out skin. And this is why you always get anti-air units to cover your artillery. A pair of AH-64 Apaches flanks the artillery and totally annihilates them. The next shot is interesting as we see Ranger riflemen being dropped from Black Hawk helicopters. Now, I reached out to a dev and they didn't really want to tell me yes or no. It seems like currently the only way to insert is by landing the helicopter and then the infantry leaves it. They are allegedly looking at fast roping, but they didn't want to promise me anything, so that's what I'm telling you. It is something they're looking at, but currently at the moment the only thing that's possible for infantry is to dismount when the helicopter lands on the ground. Then in one of the last shots of the gameplay, we follow a bunch of Apaches as they fly across a huge map, really to me sort of triggering that World in Conflict vibe with huge maps with a lot of maneuverability possible. A lot of Russian units in this particular set of gameplay seem to lack air defense. Unrealistic, but it does look very cool, and it probably just for showcase purposes. And that really concludes all the gameplay they have shown. I personally gotta say I'm pretty excited for being an alpha test or an alpha version of the game. I can only hope that we see more. Obviously, like I said, this will come out to some degree playable for us, hopefully Q2 of 2022, but I hope that we do see some more gameplay or any sort of information coming from the dev team before then. If you haven't checked out the initial video I made on Broken Arrow where I talk about a unit and deck customization, would highly suggest you do so, because there's a lot more to this game than just a couple of tanks shooting each other. With that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'd love to see you in the next one. Cheers!